Hi, welcome to Thank You Half Hour. I'm your host, Tom Christopher Warren, and my guest today has been a dear friend for a while. I hesitate to say, but a couple of decades, and has been a hero of mine for that long. He's the executive director of Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. Now, if you're not familiar with Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, and my audience likely is, but if you're not, look them up, go to their webpage. Their beneficiaries include the Entertainment Community Fund, the AIDS Initiative, the Women's Health Initiative, hundreds and hundreds of health service organizations, not only here in the US, but globally. They impact thousands and thousands of lives every year. And Tom is one of my heroes. Please welcome Tom Viola. Tom.
Hello, Tom. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm good. It's a beautiful day here in New York City, so it's addedly nice.
I mean, you have to be the busiest man in theater, and you're carving out a half hour to come talk to me, so I'm awfully grateful.
Well, I'm probably less busy. I mean, today's a good day, actually
Good.
for that. We are busy. We just started rehearsals for Broadway Bears.
Yep.
We have a grant round in a week, so there's a lot going on. But I'm always happy to talk to folks, especially someone like you.
I've known you for a while now, and I debated on whether or not to confess this on air, but I'm going to tell the story of how we met. So
Okay.
I have a spotty past in my early 20s of getting parking tickets and putting them in a drawer and forgetting about them, or trying to forget about them. And turns out that's not how life works. And I wound up getting my license revoked, and I wound up driving to a gig in North Jersey and getting pulled over because I was speeding in the windy roads. And my license had been suspended, and so I was arrested. Now, I was on my way to a face painting gig. I'm not sure if you know this detail, Tom, but I'm dressed entirely as a clown. So head to toe, curly wig and the whole 9 yards. And I wound up in front of a judge who gave me community service, and they allowed me to pick my organization with whom I wanted to work. They obviously had to approve it. And I knew of BCEFA, and I was, in my probably mid-20s by this point. And they did approve it, and I showed up at the office, and I said, hey, this is who I am. This is what I did. I want to work with you, and I love what you do. And Tom and the staff very graciously hosted my dumb self, and that began a relationship with Broadway Cares that I've treasured ever since. And what you do.
Oh, I forgot all about that. What year would that have been?
I mean, when I was going through everything, it was in my late teens, and it probably took a decade to actually get to the court system by the time everything, So it was probably mid 90s, late 90s.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
We were all younger then.
Ooh. Young and dumb, and
Yes,
we
all of it.
But my terrible decisions led me to you all, and having a much more intimate understanding of the work that you do in the office. To say that it's remarkable is an understatement. That's just scratching the surface of what you all do. So what year was Broadway Cares? 98 was when you all unified?
92. We
92.
we were two separate organizations founded right about the same time on either side of literally 1988. Broadway Cares, a small group of producers, and then Equity Fights AIDS, where I came from, Actors Equity Upstairs. At the time, I was working as Colleen Dewhurst's assistant.
I want to talk about that. Yeah,
of the union, and they had just created the Equity Fights AIDS committee, and all these committees at Equity get somebody on staff who does basically, sort of does the work that they want to do. And they assigned that to me, figuring there wouldn't be that much to do, you could do this. And the fact of the matter was, I was really looking for something, needing something to be able to grasp onto, to really throw my energies behind at that point in my life. And Colleen was so determined that Equity Fights AIDS and Broadway Cares, that she also worked with, take some kind of root in the community. And this was specifically to raise money for what was then the AIDS Initiative at the Actors Fund and some small organizations that were the beginning of our national grants program. She more or less just cleared the deck. She said, you do whatever we can do, whatever we need to do. And she was really the impetus for everything that we do today.
Incredible. I was just thinking about Colleen because, we just elected a new Actors Equity president, Brooke Shields, last week. And it took me back to Patrick Quinn, of course, but Colleen is the first one that I remember because I joined in '86, and so
Sure.
she was my first like anchor to what the labor union was, and I was deputying a lot back then, so I was,
Mhm.
really paying attention. So I came across a quote that you
Sure.
from an interview, and I wonder how it connects to Colleen, if it does. You're quoted as saying HIV/AIDS has always created or reinforced economic hardship. It magnifies issues of poverty, absence of decent, affordable health care, lack of job opportunity, homelessness, hunger, and a fraying network of resources. And here we are in this industry, and you came here to be an actor and you were a writer for years, and it's an industry that is rooted in competitiveness just by the
Mhm.
numbers, right? But also rooted so deeply in ferocious support of one another. What
Yeah.
made you, the actor writer, search for that path of service, or did you
Well,
just
you know what?
land there?
It was extreme good fortune because I landed up at Actors Equity before the Equity Fights AIDS piece happened as a pen for hire. I'd been hired
Yeah.
to write some things for them for what they thought was going to be 8 weeks. It took much longer to get done what we were doing, and that was at the time when I met folks there, and they began to just give me things to do that didn't have anything to do with contract. No understanding of the contract. Literally, they had a 75th anniversary in 1988. And in 1987, when I had come on board there, they were trying to make all kinds of plans for things they wanted to do about this anniversary. But this committee of sort of high-powered people that included Alan Eisenberg, who was the executive director at that point, and Colleen Dewhurst, and a number of folks, they would have a committee meeting. I would be there, quote unquote, to take the notes. And then nobody would do anything. And they were too busy. So finally, I just sort of took it upon myself when they started saying, "Oh, we should have T-shirts." Okay, but nobody was going to look up how to do the T-shirts or what. So I did that, and once I'd done it once, as always happens with this sort of thing, then everything it became my job. And in that, since Colleen was very involved in that, that's where we first met and connected. So when she ran for president, I guess it was in '87. I think it was maybe '87. She asked that part of that deal would be that I would be her assistant. So we began to work very closely because I ended up working on her memoir with her and a number of things. And that's then when Equity Fights AIDS happened in '88, and all of that came together. My understanding of what it was to be an actor in the business. I didn't work here on Broadway. I worked out of town at some dinner theaters and regional theaters and some, places that have been torn down on 42nd Street.
Sure.
But, but at any rate, and also my ability, I guess, to get something on paper, it all kind of coalesced there, and it was in a neighborhood, in a community, in an industry that I really had always wanted to be a part of since I was a kid. So I just kind of grabbed it.
You really are the sort of the patriarch of the entire community, and probably unwillingly. You know what I mean? Like, I certainly don't think you said, I don't, this was a moment in the AIDS landscape that looked very different from today.
It was brutal and bleak. It was terrible. I think, and Colleen was the kind of woman, kind of person who literally, while she wasn't going to necessarily understand how to execute what needed to be done, she understood emotionally what needed to be done and how people needed to be engaged, both to bring them together, to offer help, but also to accept help. And so we came around at just the time that the Actors Fund, now called the Entertainment Community Fund, created the HIV/AIDS initiative. That was literally around that same time, 88. And by that time, HIV/AIDS had been around, for 6 or 7 years, but things had become so desperate, and it was so clear, and people were so sad and angry and
stigmatized.
Stigma. All of this, that we realized we were not going to be taken care of. We had to take care of ourselves. And that certainly was the impetus around both Broadway Cares and Equity Fights AIDS, and all sorts of organizations that sprung up in response to that.
Sure. How do you quickly connect the dots from the company of Lacage banding together and saying, "Hey kids, let's put on a show," to today's Broadway Bears, which how much is Broadway Bears raising these days?
I think we raised $1.8 million last year. But here's the thing about all this thing, and we can jump in here. The numbers are extraordinary, and they speak to the amazing generosity of spirit and commitment and engagement of this community, and now generations. I mean, literally 40. I mean, you start in the 35 years of folks who have worked in this industry, both here in New York and on national tours across the country, and even in regional theaters and smaller theaters across the country. But
and colleges.
And we were, colleges, we get calls from colleges who, see an appeal made here and they want to do that as part of their production of whatever show they're doing. Actually, when you get the materials from Rent, I'm not sure whether it's MTI or Tams Whitmark, they actually suggest that you include some kind of appeal for us in their production, because it's certainly so much a part of that story. It's part of the ownership. We've awarded over $300 million in grants. I mean, it's like $160 million to the Entertainment Community Fund since '88, and about another $140 million or so, to through our national grants program to these 450 or more organizations, all of whom have now expanded their missions. I mean, we fund everything the Actors Fund does, or the Entertainment Community Fund does, their entire safety net of social services, whether that's, the Dancers Resource or the Friedman Health Center or the Phyllis Newman Women's Health Initiative or senior services or addiction and recovery service. I mean, literally, but that, who needs that? Yeah. But at any rate, I mean, everything that they do, the assistance they were giving during the shutdown during COVID, we were unable to raise funds during that year and a half of shutdown as we had ever had before, but we literally retooled everything that we did and creating a COVID emergency assistance fund and throwing archival versions of our events up online to raise funds with that donate button. And, we provided the Entertainment Community Fund with $18 million during those 2 years. It's staggering. It is staggering. And when I talk about it like this, the numbers are so big, they almost feel unimaginable. And I think they make the organization look like something it's not in a certain way. Because as you'll remember, everything that we do started small. Yeah. We didn't sit down to do Broadway Bears the way we did Broadway, the way we're going to do Broadway Bears on June 23rd at Hammerstein Ballroom. That began with Jerry Mitchell and 7 other buddies from Miss Saigon and Will Rogers Follies and Les Mis dancing on a bar at Splash, and tips in their jocks. Sure. I mean, I remember I was there that night. I mean, we raised about $8,000, and I think they really planned that was just going to be a fun, sort of crazy evening. And a light bulb went off for Jerry Mitchell. Went, oh my God, we could really do this as an event, and it grew incrementally from there. The flea market began when the original cast, but the last cast of the original production of A Chorus Line, whatever year that was, maybe, I don't know, 87, something late 80s. Yeah, we're getting ready to leave the theater, so they threw some card tables out in front of their stage door, and we're selling shit. Sorry, they were selling, mugs and stuff, just stuff off their dressing tables, and we're doing it at that point. I think they were doing it for what was called the National AIDS Fund, which, this is even before we had been created. That got other people thinking, can we join you? And before you knew it, we had a couple more tables. Then we had an event. Then we got Schubert Alley. And now we have West 44th, West 45th, Schubert Alley, and 50-some tables, that last year, raised, I think about, I think around like $1.6 million. It's, and 25,000 people coming through. None of that. That was never the dream or the goal, I should say. It might have been the dream. But this incremental growth and being flexible around that is what's made all this possible. Not to mention the extraordinary support of folks like you. I mean, I remember when I think of you, Tom, I think of you initially, really, at that Lion King table with the canopy, with the yellow canopy. Yeah. and all the baked goods.
Yeah. We ran a bake sale. I fancied myself Ina Garten, I think, and Jim Ferris and I, because we were the standbys, we weren't on, and so we were able to devote the day to standing behind the table, but we lived for it. We loved every second of it. Jim is the mayor of Broadway, and so just the connections and the camaraderie and the fun, and you talk about the numbers. It does seem unapproachable or inaccessible, and you balance that with the fact that it was a bunch of like grassroots, non politically trained artists going, our people are dying and we are not supported politically. We at the time had a president who wouldn't even say the word. So how do we save lives? And that has grown into, I mean, are you the largest AIDS resource service?
No, not by any means. We're certainly up there, but the thing you have to be clear about us is we're a fundraising and a grant-making organization.
Right.
So in other words, we don't provide any of the services. And when people call here looking for services, we reference them, if they're in the entertainment community, to the Entertainment Community Fund. Or, it could be to God's Love We Deliver Here, which delivers meals. It could be to Callan Lord, the health clinic. But there's agencies large and small that we fund. And as I said before, many of them, as we have now also expanded their missions. The meals they deliver are not necessarily just to folks living with AIDS. They're also delivering meals to folks living with other debilitating home illnesses that leave somebody homebound. The food bank that is literally right around the corner from me, where I live at 46th and 9th, at St. Clement's Church. Yeah. I mean, there is some component of, because surely of someone living with HIV or dealing with a diagnosis, but this is really just making sure people are fed in order to be the best healthy that they can be. And I know the guy, who runs the food bank, because he's often sweeping up out front, and he says hello to me and the dogs, and as we go by. But I'll also see the lines of folks who are, picking up what's, on the tables in front of the church, or going into the church and coming out with bags, and that's really making a difference in like one life at a time. It's what we're all about.
It's remarkable. You're working with industry, you've met and worked with and pleaded with and negotiated with every industry professional, I think, in the theater by this point.
Yes. I mean, again, we try to create win-win situations. Do you know what I mean? I mean, when I go backstage, like I said, before an appeal period, to ask a show to participate in the fundraising, the appeals that we make from the stage, and the red buckets that are in the lobby. What I do is to also tell them how this money is there for them through the Entertainment Community Fund, but how we can also make sure that this goodwill radiates beyond this theater through our national grants program, and people connect into that in all different ways. There's not just one way to participate with us. There's not just one way. The way you're participating is put to work, and different things mean different things. Different things to different people.
Of course. But I remember back then the Actors Fund, now the Entertainment Communities Fund, paid my rent probably 20 years ago for a month, because it was a rough month and we were all, it's a hard industry and I didn't have money. Yeah. And they were there for me in a way that I didn't necessarily know until someone like you had explained to me. These are the resources that we have at the tip of our, at our hand. And we just need to ask for help. And then when you do, you figure out how you can help others. And that's the sort of cycle of generosity that BCEFA has always.
Well, it's both about reaching forward and especially reaching back. You know what I mean? As you go through a door, not shutting it behind you.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. What are you excited about coming up? Broadway Bears?
Broadway Bears, of course. Broadway Bears is nuts. I mean, literally, my job at my job at Broadway Bears is really just to make sure, and people do, but that everybody is playing well together. I mean, I can't even imagine. I clearly, I mean, literally, there are two performances at 9:30 and midnight at Hammerstein Ballroom. There will be truly like 2,200 people each performance that come through that event. I mean, it's nuts. There's 200 dancers. You know, there's
200 dancers.
Yes. There's 24 stage managers. I mean, it's immense. So we have an extraordinary team, a staff here that really understands what that means to do that. They just started rehearsal today, and there's 12 numbers in the show. So the 12 numbers rehearse separately until the Friday before the show, when we all come together down there at New 42 and see the whole thing strung together like a necklace. Wow. And then for the weekend, they've started building this the Wednesday before. We are literally in Hammerstein Ballroom on different schedules, because there are people that are working, there are people that aren't working. I mean, it's
around the
crazy.
Clock. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am just constantly moving, making sure folks are all right. Do you have what you need? Is there, if someone's having an issue, a breakdown, something.
And someone will.
Verifully. Can I even just in letting them know that they're being heard?
Sure.
Often makes that a little more possible, and truly an axiom that somebody shared with me years ago. It might have been Roger McFarlane, who was my partner in this when we first merged. Said, look, he said, being a leader in this thing is really about two things. He said, you share the credit and you take the blame. And that is how I can most be of service in making sure that people feel appreciated and have ownership of this. But when shit goes down, that I really am there to say, whoa, okay, you need to talk to me, as opposed to like pushing this off on somebody else, and so that it's not my fault or the organization's fault, and that's important.
Well, these events, right? So you're dealing with, it's difficult enough to deal with artist egos. You're dealing with 200, and the event is volunteer for them. For the performers. And it's not as rehearsed as a Broadway show, but the finished product
this one is pretty, I mean, unlike Gypsy, Red Bucket Follies or Easter Bonnet, where it's that flurry of activity, before we actually do the two performances, particularly around, because of safety issues. Bears is really, that's why, what's today? Today is May 30th. Rehearsal started today. I mean, there's going to be, whatever that is, 3 weeks that we're going to be working on this. I mean, it's a big, big commitment. Not everybody all at once. A lot of stuff is strung together at the end. But it's very carefully done so that there's no issue around any kind of safety issue or people just not feeling like they're taken care of.
Sure. Well, it's produced, it's lit, it's costumed, there's hair, there's makeup. The partnering with all of the sponsors has to be gargantuan, because you, as a spectator, you believe you're watching a Broadway show that has been rehearsing for months, that has been in pre-production. I mean, it's just a full thing, but with 10 times the number of people in front of you.
Yeah, and we're very fortunate. I mean, none of these things are done for free. I mean, we have the same expenses,
of course,
in terms of equipment and crew. I mean, but there is a sense that people are coming together in some sort of solidarity to get to that end point.
Yes.
And also what really helps everything that we do, and you know this as well, is the competition between whether it's shows or individuals or numbers that really kind of drives. We learned that early on. It drives so much that we do. Half of the revenue from Broadway Bears is now raised from what we call the Stripathon, which is the online fundraising that all the dancers, the stage managers, the crew, anybody who wants to. I mean, there'll be easily 300 people who participate in the Stripathon this year. And last year's Stripathon raised more than ticket sales. Last year's Stripathon raised just over $1 million. And then we had about, like $700,000 in ticket sales. So that tells you how important that competitive fundraising is. And then what we also do is we create all sorts of incentives and small parties and all sorts of things that just keep people engaged in wanting to do that.
Yeah. And then at the end of the day, you're watching the best dancers in the world do what they do at the highest level.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. And of course, at the end of the midnight show, which is 1:15 or something in the morning,
Yeah.
we give awards to the top 10, top 12 fundraisers, and they get the sashes and it's all sorts of that it matters. We learned very early on that competition for us around our initiatives and efforts
is healthy,
is a good thing. I mean, you know it from the fundraising that you did at the Lion King, and where you all would come in and that, or even that we list the top 10 tables at the flea market every year in the press release. I mean, we do all the time. Yeah.
I mean, I was 100 years old at 30, so I never made the midnight show of Bears. I was always a 9:30 girly, so I didn't know about the awards.
Oh, I got to tell you, when that night, we stopped cleaning up like at 4 a.m. officially, and then there's a break, and then we come back with a real loadout that begins at 8 a.m. But that is one crazy weekend. I'm probably the only thing that's probably bigger in terms of tech and stuff is the Fire Island Dance Festival, where we build like a 350-seat amphitheater and stage overlooking the Great South Bay in the Pines at Fire Island. And that's also a very big event. I like to say it's like the gay circus comes to town, because we start on Wednesday loading in. The dancers arrive on Friday, they rehearse, and then we have 2 performances Saturday and 1 on Sunday. And then the loadout goes until Tuesday. Then everybody pretty much just lays on the beach until Wednesday.
Wow. When does that happen?
That is when? July 20th and 21st. I was looking at my calendar. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so for my listeners who are wondering how they can help, how can they connect with Broadway Cares? How can they have their voice be heard? What do you recommend?
Well, here's what's really important. It's all about the website. You can go to www.broadwaycares, all one word, .org. That's our website. And literally, there's all sorts of things to read there. How we raise money, archival videos, highlights videos, pictures, stories about the event, and as importantly, probably even more importantly, all the grant making we do. So literally, if somebody is really looking for like an introduction to us, go to the website, broadwaycares.org. We also are on Instagram and Facebook and, all the social media, which I don't know how to use. But I'm just like an old time Facebook guy. And, the TikTok stuff comes across the top and I go, what? But we do all of that as well. And you can Google us. You should go to our YouTube channel. At /BCEFA, because there's a slew of videos. You would love this too, because there's all sorts of things recent and from 20, 25 years ago.
I remember my first seeing Bears was at Webster Hall, and it was it was Jane Krakowski was my date because we were doing Mattress at the time, and what was it? Calendar Girl? It might have been Calendar Girl. It might have been Circus.
I remember. I think we were at Webster Hall twice, and one was I remember it was a circus theme.
Jason Opsal was.
Yes.
Yep, it was that year.
Yeah, that was wonderful. And it was right after. Yes, it was right after Webster Hall, where we went up to Roseland.
Yep.
For 13 years, which I just loved. I mean, the event now is. We were so heartbroken when Roseland closed and then was torn down.
Yes.
But now we're at Hammerstein Ballroom. Thank God we found this bigger space, because actually we can do a better event there, and it's better backstage and for all of that.
Yeah. Roseland
was funky and fun,
disgusting and fabulous. And I remember volunteering one year and cleaning toilets and just getting the space ready.
Yeah,
the story.
I mean, they would. I mean, Hammerstein Ballroom was very. That's a strict operation. It's more expensive, lots of rules, but it's a better space. Hammerstein Ballroom would like hand us the key and go, try to leave the place intact.
Try not to burn the place down.
Yeah, and
if you do, we have insurance.
And were you around when we literally moved the flea market overnight from a Saturday to a Sunday, because it was pouring, got a pouring rain on Sunday to Roseland?
Never, ever did I want to do that again. We did it was gargantuan, and we all went, okay, this can't ever happen
No,
again.
it was, and that was only because we'd worked in Roseland before. They knew us and trusted us.
Yep.
And it was sort of as crazy as it was. I remember Michael Graziano, Michael, called the woman, I forget her name, who was our contact up there. And we just said, is there any chance we could do the event there? Because we knew it was going to pour all day on Sunday. And when could we come in? And she said, well, I have a bar mitzvah until 11, but you can have it from then on. And literally, we kept the flowers from the bar mitzvah and put them around the stage.
That is the perfect analogy for how these events come together. It's
my God.
Remarkable. Tom, thank you for your time, for everything you're doing. Tony winner. We didn't even get to talk about your Tony Award, which I'm just.
Well, it was a great honor, and I really felt like I was really just accepting it on behalf of thousands of folks who make all we do possible, including you.
Well, that's a testament to who you are, sir. And I'm so grateful to know you and for everything you're doing. And it's great to catch up with you.
Thanks, Tom. It's good to see you.
You too. We'll see you soon.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Half hour.
Thank you. Half hour.
Boxland Media. Think big.